The wind howled through the broken window of the small wooden cabin as Martha Jenkins pulled her faded shawl tighter around her shoulders. Outside, the snow was falling so heavily it looked like the world had been erased. Only whiteness and the distant moan of the wind remained. The old woman's hands trembled as she tried to keep the fire alive with the last few pieces of wood she had left. It was the third night of the storm and the power had been gone since morning. The radio had long since gone silent. Her pantry shelves were nearly bare, a few cans of beans, a jar of molasses, and a loaf of bread that had gone hard as stone. But Martha didn't complain. She'd seen harder winters, lonelier nights. At 72, Martha had learned how to endure. She had spent most of her life doing just that, enduring. She lived at the edge of the small town of Miller's Creek, far out in the countryside of northern Missouri. A place where time seemed to move slower and people's hearts sometimes did too. For years, she'd worked as a cleaner in the local school, walking miles in the snow just to earn enough to pay her heating bills. Most people in town barely noticed her, the quiet old black woman who kept to herself. But that night, as the storm howled around her little cabin, something happened that would change her life forever. It was just past midnight when she heard it, a faint sound beneath the wind, a kind of muffled cry. At first, she thought it was the wind itself playing tricks, but then she heard it again, a voice, weak, desperate. Martha grabbed her lantern, wrapped herself in her heavy coat, and pushed open the door. The snow came in hard, stinging her face like needles. She could barely see more than a few feet ahead, but she kept walking, following that sound, her boots sinking deep into the snow. After several minutes, she saw it, a car half buried in the ditch by the side of the road. The headlights flickered weakly, and the engine was silent. She hurried closer and saw a man banging on the window, panic in his eyes. Inside the car were two small children huddled in the back seat, and a woman with her arms wrapped around them trying to keep them warm. Martha banged on the window. "You folks all right in there?" she shouted over the wind. The man rolled the window down halfway, his face pale from the cold. "We're stuck. The car died hours ago. My phone's dead too. We were driving home from Kansas City and got lost." Martha could see the fear in his eyes, the kind that came not just from the storm but from desperation. "Come on," she said firmly. "You can't stay in there, you'll freeze to death. My cabin's just a little ways back." The man hesitated, maybe it was pride, maybe it was surprise. But the cold was merciless and the children's teeth were chattering. Finally, he nodded. It took them nearly 20 minutes to walk through the deep snow back to Martha's cabin. By the time they got there, everyone was soaked and shivering. Martha ushered them in quickly, throwing blankets over their shoulders, setting the kettle on the stove. "I ain't got much," she said softly, "but I'll make you all some tea. You'll be warm soon enough." The woman who introduced herself as Sarah smiled gratefully through tears. "Thank you so much. We didn't know where we were. You saved us." Her husband, Tom, nodded, still rubbing his hands together by the fire. "We didn't even see your cabin in the snow. If you hadn't come out, I don't know what would have happened." Martha smiled faintly, stirring the tea with shaking hands. "The Lord must have sent me out there. I don't go wandering in the cold for no reason." The children, Lily and Ben, maybe 7 and 9 years old, huddled near the fire, watching the flames dance. Martha smiled at them and handed them each a piece of hard candy from the jar on her shelf, her last two. Their eyes lit up like Christmas lights. As the night went on, they talked. Slowly, quietly, the walls between them began to melt. Tom explained that they were driving home from visiting Sarah's parents when the GPS sent them down a wrong turn. The storm hit harder than expected. Martha listened. She didn't talk much, but when she did, her voice carried warmth, the kind that came from a life of both pain and grace. She told them about her late husband, who'd worked the fields until his health gave out, about raising two sons who'd moved away to the city, about losing one of them to illness and the other to distance. The little family listened in silence. When she finished, Sarah reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You've been through so much," she whispered, "and yet here you are helping us, complete strangers." Martha smiled, her eyes glistening. "Honey, strangers are just friends we haven't met yet." By dawn, the storm had eased a little. The snow outside was waist-deep, but the first rays of sunlight were breaking through the clouds. Tom tried to dig his car out, but it was useless. They were stuck until the roads were cleared. So they stayed. For 2 days, the family lived in that little cabin with Martha. They shared stories, laughter, and silence. The children played with her old dog, Rufus, and Sarah helped Martha bake cornbread over the wood stove. In those quiet hours, something unspoken grew between them, a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. Martha, who had spent so many winters alone, suddenly felt her house full again, with laughter, with life, with hope. On the third day, a snowplow finally made it down the road. The family's car was towed, and they were ready to leave. Sarah hugged Martha tightly. You'll never know what you've done for us, you saved our lives. Martha smiled, brushing a tear from her cheek. You all gave me something too, company, that's worth more than gold. Tom shook her hand firmly. If you're ever near St. Louis, you look us up, all right. Martha chuckled, I'll hold you to that. And just like that, they were gone, driving off through the snow, waving through the rear window as Martha stood on her porch, her heart full and heavy all at once. Weeks passed, the snow melted, the quiet returned. Life went on for Martha as it always had, slow and simple, but something in her had changed. She'd begun writing letters to Sarah and the kids. They sent her photos in return, pictures of the children smiling, drawings that said, "Thank you, Miss Martha." Then one spring morning, a letter arrived that made her heart stop. It was from Tom. He explained that his company was expanding and looking to purchase property in Miller's Creek, old farmland, to be turned into a distribution center. He had visited recently and seen the area where Martha's cabin stood. Martha, the letter read, I couldn't stop thinking about you and all you did for us. You told us you've been struggling to keep your home through the winters. If you'll allow it, I'd like to buy the land around your cabin and give you full ownership of your home, free and clear. No more rent, no more worries. You saved our lives, now let us help you live yours in peace. Tears streamed down Martha's face as she read the words again and again. For years she had prayed for a little security, a little kindness, and it had come back to her in the most unexpected way. That summer, Tom, Sarah, and the kids returned. They brought new furniture, a generator, even painted the old cabin bright yellow. They called it Martha's Place. Neighbors began to notice. People who had once passed by her without a glance now stopped to talk, to lend a hand, to listen. And Martha, the quiet, forgotten woman at the edge of town, became a symbol of something bigger. Not charity, not pity, but humanity. Because kindness, once sown, has a way of coming back, sometimes when you least expect it, sometimes through people who look nothing like you but share the same beating heart. As the camera pans out, the cabin glowing in the golden light of evening, the sound of laughter echoing across the fields, the narrator's voice would say softly, one act of kindness can melt even the coldest winter. If Martha's story touched your heart, take a moment to share it, and remember, kindness doesn't see color, only people. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because stories like this remind us that the world still has good left in it.